Okay, welcome to the deep dive. So today we're getting into the effects of those recent U.S. aid funding cuts, specifically how they're hitting Irish aid agencies.
Right. We've been looking at an RTA news report, some documents too.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea is to sort of trace the ripples, understand what this policy shift really means, maybe even for the future of global aid.
It's a good topic.
It is. So let's set the scene a bit. Before January this year, the U.S. was, well, a huge player in foreign aid globally, a massive donor.
Absolutely huge. I mean, think about organizations like USA. They were really fundamental for so many international NGOs. That funding, it allowed them to operate, plan their programs, with some level of certainty.
Crucial support, basically.
Definitely.
Then January hit, President Trump's executive order freezing, potentially terminating foreign aid, and that kicked off this big review. And the documents we saw, wow, they show Irish NGOs felt the impact almost straight away. And it was pretty significant.
Yeah, the speed of it is quite striking. You read through these documents, and there's this real sense of uncertainty. Talk about potential job losses, programs being suspended.
It really brings home the human cost, doesn't it? It's not just numbers on a page.
Exactly. It's very real for the people working there and the people they serve.
And some of the specific examples really underline the scale. Concern, for instance. They were looking at losing over, 20 million?
Yeah, over 20 million. That's a massive hole in funding.
Massive. And apparently that directly impacted something like 3 million people across 9 different grants.
3 million. And if you break it down regionally, I mean, the numbers are worrying. In the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, nearly 250,000 people affected by concerns programs ending there.
250,000.
And then Sudan, over 100,000 people affected there too.
Wow. And it wasn't just feeling the pressure.
No, not at all. There were serious concerns mentioned about Goals work in Turkey and Syria. That operation relied heavily on U.S. funding. Suddenly, it's very precarious.
Right. And Trocare, too, we saw that some of their partners on the ground depended hugely on U.S. aid.
Hugely is right. Up to 80% in some cases.
80%, that's, well, almost total dependence.
It really is. It just shows how tangled up this global aid network is. You pull a major thread like U.S. funding, and the whole thing feels it.
And the impact can be quite drastic, quite quickly. Like Self-Help Africa deciding they had to pull out of the Gambia, Senegal, and Uganda by March.
That really demonstrates the severity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Having to withdraw completely from countries.
It does. Which brings us to this pretty bleak outlook mentioned by an Irish AIDS Director General.
Ah, yes. The warning that some international funding partners might actually struggle to survive past, what was it, 2025?
Yeah, 2025. Facing survival issues purely because of these cuts. That's a stark thing to hear.
It is stark. But, sometimes a crisis forces a rethink. There are signs this is prompting discussions about, not putting all the eggs in one basket.
Diversifying funding, exploring new partnerships.
Exactly. The documents touch on maybe looking towards countries like China, Japan, Korea. They haven't traditionally been donors in the same way, perhaps.
Interesting. And also more cooperation between recipient regions, like increased collaboration among Caribbean states was mentioned.
Right. So you might see a bit of a shift, maybe a reshaping of how international aid works, who the key players are.
It definitely raises big questions about the future of development aid. Because even though that 90-day review finished...
Well, yeah, the review period ended, but the documents suggest a lot of termination notices had already gone out.
So the damage was already done in many cases.
It seems so. These organizations are left with pretty significant budget holes. We've got a huge task now, adapting to this, new reality.
So, thinking about this, for you listening, it really throws a spotlight on just how interconnected global aid is, doesn't it?
Definitely.
How decisions made in one place, policy shifts, can have these massive, far-reaching effects elsewhere.
And it makes you think about the maybe fragility of some of these support systems.
Yeah. And maybe we're seeing the beginning of a real shakeup in international partnerships as priorities change around the world. It's certainly a powerful reminder of how linked global challenges are and just how vital that international cooperation piece is.
Absolutely. A lot to keep an eye on there.